Yes, sir. We made it to another Sunday, my boy. Hello, hello, hello. How you doing? You're listening to On God with Uncle Leon, right? On Hits 92.3. How you doing? How you doing? So, as usual, all right, for those that may be new today, Uncle Leon, where did that come from, right? I get asked quite often, why Uncle Leon? So, all the fellas that grew up without a dad, you can call me Uncle Leon, the father you never had. You understand? So I realized that everyone wasn't blessed like I was, like I am, to have the uncles that I have, right? The positive male role models that I've had along the way, right? My stepdad, R.I.P., it's on one. But for those fellas, because I don't believe in excuses, so you can never say that, you weren't privy to, because you got Uncle Leon out here putting the footwork in. You understand what I'm saying? So I also created a business this year. It's called Learn Laugh Leon LC. And it was created to highlight the severity of mental health amongst black men. It's something that's not really discussed, right? Like there's nothing wrong. It doesn't make you any less of a man to say, hey, that hurt my feelings. Or, hey, I'm not feeling cool today. I need a hug. You know what I mean? Ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, everyone deals with that. So the call-in number up here is 404-254-4347. Later on, all right? If anybody wants to call, that is the number you can call. So right now, per usual, we got my boy artist Tebow, right, on the beat, responsible for the beat that we're listening to behind me. He is my cousin as well as an artist. You understand what I'm saying? So he sent me this beat last week, but I do love this beat, so you understand? So we're gonna let it breathe again. So y'all can listen to my boy artist Tebow. That's his Instagram. TikTok, I believe, as well. But yeah, that's my cousin, so we can go ahead and let it breathe. All right, let's get it. Again, that was my boy artist Tebow. It's my cousin, an artist as well, clearly, right? But that was his beat. He made that. So today, right? What do I want to discuss? I titled this one, Humans Handling Hardships, right? So I feel like this is definitely a relatable topic for everyone, right? If you're a human, there you go, right? Everyone deals with hardship, so there you go. You get what I'm saying? So the definition of hardship, right? It's severe suffering, right? So that's really what it is. Now, I also looked up the most common examples of hardships, right? So I saw illness or injury. I saw change of employment status, loss of income, natural disasters, divorce, death. There was another, but I didn't really care for it, so I didn't mention it. Now, hardship. So on my knuckles, right, I have tattooed WWYDIFWA, right? It stands for what would you do if faced with adversity? So I was reading a book, last year? Yeah, I believe it was last year. Maybe this year, I don't know. But it was speaking on hardships and how to deal with them, right? So this week I'm gonna do something a little interesting, right? Or a little different than what I've normally done in the past. So I am a spiritual guy, but I was raised up, I have a Baptist background. So I don't necessarily live by the Bible, but I do utilize the Bible. I feel like it's a useful tool, for me at least. You understand what I'm saying? So there was a verse, right? In the book I was reading, there was a verse, because it was a religious book. And the English Standard Version, right, of this verse is, man who is born of a woman is few of days and full of trouble. So, excuse me, the scary part, the crazy part about this whole thing is I read that verse in the book, right? And the verse stuck with me. And I've actually been telling people, the verse. But I'll be honest, right? I tell them, I don't know what verse it is, but, and I looked it up today. And it's in the book of Job. It's chapter 14, verse 1. So I got to thinking, and it's crazy how it lined back up because, like I said, even though I'm spiritual, I do still utilize the Bible when I want to. You understand what I'm saying? And out of majority of the Bible, I really say majority of the Bible, right? Because I haven't read most of it. But the book of Job, I've read quite a bit of it, right? So I'm not trying to sit here and say I'm well versed, but I have a little more insight, right? Based off of someone else's perspective, obviously, of Job's life, what took place with Job. And I read that book, or I read into the book of Job when I was like 24, 25, something like that. Yeah, because I was really going through it. And I was in the church still. I was still considered religious. Consider myself religious then. And one of the guys or someone in the church mentioned, the book of Job, the story of Job. And my dukes mentioned the story when we were younger, right? So I heard it in church before, but it's different as a child going to church. Is like, how I viewed it, I don't have a choice. Like, so I'm not really here. You know what I mean? I'm here because I had to get up or I was going to get a whooping. As an adult, though, it's much different, in my opinion, that I choose to go. So I'm actually going to listen, to try to hear, right? To analyze and apply, if need be. So having trouble in life is a guarantee, right? Regardless of how close you are to God, regardless of how much love you sow, regardless of whether you choose to be religious, spiritual, or atheist, right, etc. You will have hard times in life. So I want to say this real quick before I get into my whole spiel on Job, right? So I asked Granny around the same time I was reading the book of Job, right? And I said, why does God allow so many bad things to happen to humans? And her response was, without rain, you won't know to cherish the sunshine, right? So we're gonna put a pin in that one. And if need be, I'll come back and break it down. You understand? So let's get into Job. So do understand this is not me taking jabs at religion or trying to find fallacies or anything like that. This is merely sharing my spiritual perspective on a religious matter, right? If that makes sense, because I feel like it's all about being able to respect a perspective that is not yours or doesn't align with yours, right? So I hope we can all follow along. I hope you all can follow along, right? So with the okay, this is my understanding of how it went down, right, with Job. So basically, the devil went to God and asked for permission to wreak havoc in Job's life, right? So initially, like just looking at it, like without getting deeper into it, my first, and I didn't come to this conclusion until after a while. It wasn't until a time after, a while after I read was reading the book of Job, right? Because I didn't finish it. But it's the way I see it, or I initially saw it, is what was God trying to prove and to whom? You get what I'm saying? So that's a horse of a different color, right? So if I have time, I'll touch back into that. But how I see it now, right? The fact still remains, if I recall correctly, that Job never cursed God's name, right? Even though he had no idea that God and the devil had a side bet going on, he still never cursed God's name, right? So my approach, or I'm sorry, my message for you is a lot less, hey, look, this is what the Bible says, and more of a, hey, look, this is what's in the Bible, and it might be useful to you, right? So much like a pastor, right? I'm simply just giving you how I'm perceiving it, how I'm understanding it. You get what I'm saying? So, you know what? I don't feel comfortable just moving on from that. So when I asked, right, what was God trying to prove? I really don't get it. I do not. I'll be completely honest with you all. I do not get it. Why Job had to go through all of that? Because the way I see life, the way I go about life, if I'm sure of something, I don't have to prove it to you or anybody else. Even if someone comes to me with a bet, with a wager, I still don't see the point. But for some reason or another, I guess to show the world how serious he is, like, that he really bought it, like he really bought that life, God allowed Job to do all of that. Like, I don't. But it's like, now that I think about it, I think it was less God trying to prove something, right? And more of that was Job's destiny, right? So God wasn't trying to prove anything. It was Job's destiny, right? Much like everyday people, right? Me, myself, for example, it's to let people know that it doesn't matter how bad it gets, how bad it is, like, that's not it. However bad that is, it's required. For whatever reason, I can't speak for you in your life, right? I'm not even gonna sit here and try to pretend. Hell, in my own life, I'm not really sure why things happen, right? Some things happen. I wish I knew. So listen, you figure out how to get them answers. Could you please share that with me? But if you've only ever been given a flat soda, right? That's all you've ever been given was flat soda. And so say, okay, I'm more realistic, right? example or scenario. Growing up, there's a child, the family doesn't have much, right? It's a single parent, right? We'll say it's a single father. And he doesn't have much to do for his kids, right? So he buys juice or soda, right? But it's old, right? So it's flat now. So that child grows up drinking that flat soda. So they reach adulthood or whatever later on in life. They don't have to be an adult, but later on in life, somebody at school, right, lets them taste a fresh soda, gives them a fresh soda, right? That does the whole snap, crackle, pop. I firmly believe that that child will now have a different outlook on life. Maybe not as a child, but eventually one understands that there's levels. You see what I'm saying? How can you, because what a lot of us don't really think about is when you walk through a door, right? So you're in a room and the room is just like, it's so hot in here, right? It's hot in the room. And there's a door, right, that you can leave that room. So many people will just run through that door, right? Just because it's so hot, the heat is too unbearable, right? They'll just run through the door and not even take a second to think about what's behind the door. You get what I'm saying? So you're in that room and you're chilling in the heat, right? You're in a situation where it's hot. The next time you get some AC, your AC break, right? And you gotta live in the middle of the summer. When you get your AC fixed, listen, you're gonna cherish that AC a whole lot more. You get what I'm saying? Because you've now been through a time where you didn't have AC. You didn't have the privilege of an AC. You get what I'm saying? That child is gonna appreciate a fresh soda because they know what it's like to live on flat soda, to live drinking flat soda. So people call them hardships, and cool, that's what people want to call them, hardships. But for me, I don't view it as a hardship. If anything, it's a tutoring session. So a lot of people, so I titled this one, Humans Handling Hardships, because I feel like a lot of people try to handle things. They try to deal with things, right? So some things, yes, need to be handled, need to be dealt with. There are other things where it would be a lot more beneficial to cope with those things as opposed to handling a hardship, right? I myself try to cope when dealing with the hardship as opposed to handling the hardship. You get what I'm saying? Because, and it wasn't until this morning, OnGod, this morning, I was using the restroom, right, for you hop in the shower, and I was sitting, you know what I'm saying, on the laptop, you know what I'm saying, Joe, working, chopping it up. I like to do things as close as possible to keep it fresh for you. You get what I'm saying? So I really didn't think about this until this morning, when the difference between handling and dealing with something and the difference between coping with something. Like, there is a difference. You get what I'm saying? So, handling, right? So a situation that needs to be handled, right? Well, you know what? Before that, okay. So, in my opinion, when a person is attempting to handle something, they're attempting to change something, right? Handling takes a level of maturity, so by no means am I diminishing the value that handling something has. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not trying to make it seem like you shouldn't handle hardships, because there are, well, you know what? I'm going to say yes, I think you shouldn't handle hardships. Yes, I don't think you should. Like I said, other things in life, so if you get a flat tire, right? Yes, you should definitely deal with that. Handle that. You get what I'm saying? Handle that. Because if not, you're going to do a lot more damage to your car than any that has already been done. You dig what I'm saying? So a hardship, though, is something completely different. So let's see. Let me give you actually, the beauty of Google, right? So a hardship it's not a one-time thing, right? Hard times. It's essentially the same thing in my opinion. Hard times. So it's not just one thing that's happened, right? So it's not just one tire going flat this week. It's all four tires going flat this week. You had some hardships this week. That I'm sure it felt like a long week. You get what I'm saying? So it's a very small like detail that makes them different. But that's why I say you can't handle a hardship. Because when you try to handle a hardship, you're attempting to change when you attempt to handle a hardship, what you're doing is you're prolonging your growth. You following me? If you try to handle your hardship, you're prolonging your growth. Because coping is learning how to adapt, in my opinion. You get what I'm saying? Coping is adapting. So you have to address, when handling and when coping, you do have to address whatever it is first. That's step one, right? Address, right? So after we do that, you then have to make, I make a decision. Is this something that I need to handle, right? When something happens in life, I figure out, does this need to be handled, right? Is this a situation, or does this need to be coped with? Is this a hardship? You understand what I'm saying? So there's multiple ways to cope with something, right? There's, in my opinion, even more ways to handle things. So when I was attempting to handle things, I was trying to be in control. You get what I'm saying? So I get it. Everybody's not me, right? But when you're essentially telling God or the universe or the Most High, whatever your label you want to put on it, you're essentially telling them, fate, the universe, right, that no, this does not need to happen. I don't need this here. That's what happens when, in my opinion, that's what you're doing. That's what you're saying when you try to handle a hardship. That's why I said you're prolonging your growth. I firmly believe everything happens for a reason. Everything. You stub your toe. It happened for a reason, right? Whatever that may be. But hardships come for a reason. And if I'm not mistaken, I've said this before. They are needed to help you get to where you're supposed to be. You get what I'm saying? Like right now, at home, we're dealing with, well, in my opinion, it's a hardship, right? Because it's a prolonged period of time. And my sister, Liz, said something to me the other day, and it really made me take a step back. And I spoke on this. That's, in my opinion, this is one of the characteristics of a man. Being able to take and receive some constructive criticism, you know what I'm saying, receive it and apply, right? She said to me, Leon, you're not living what you're talking about. And I had to take a step back. I'm not gonna lie, like initially, I was a little defensive. Because in that moment, though I had a valid point, I wasn't handling it the best way that I could have. You get what I'm saying? So, like I said, in that moment, I was a bit defensive. But after I took a step back from the situation and really tried to hear what my little sister was trying to tell me, because that's essentially all she was telling me was that, hey, Leon, you know what I'm saying, it's a better way you can handle this. It's a better way you can handle yourself, actually. I'm sorry. Because you can't handle the hardship, but you can handle yourself. You get what I'm saying? You cope with the hardship, but you handle yourself. See, we're trying to handle a situation that's out of our control, skipping over the fact that we have all the power in the world to control ourselves. Well, what they say, y'all ain't hear me. Do you get what I'm trying to say now? You cannot handle hardships. We're not meant to handle hardships. Because learning how to cope with that hardship is going to teach me things, is going to show me things, how to do things. You see what I'm saying? See, okay, let me see what my boy said here. He said you cope with death or the fact that your child is gay or a job you don't like but need the money. You work your way out of that hardship. Life is a journey with many obstacles. I like that. Well put. Well put. Because it sounds like you get what I'm trying to say. So it's essentially another way to say the same thing, right? There's things that yes, my job, right? Now don't get me wrong. I do like the job that I have now, right? I work from home and whatnot. So I do like the job. I'm not gonna lie. Cool people, you know what I'm saying? My job responsibility, you know, what I'm actually doing, I do like it. However, I don't want to work for somebody else my entire life. You get what I'm saying? Like that's just not me. Nothing against someone who does. That's just not, not for me. So right now, I'm coping with it. I've learned to cope with it. I've learned that I gotta go to bed at a certain time, to be up at a certain time, to be productive for the day. You get what I'm saying? So yes, stumbling blocks prepare you for the next hurdle. Yes, it's like it's much like, okay, so I'll be driving sometimes, right? And I'm on the road, right? Driving on the road, and I'm doing whatever. I'm, listening to music or not necessarily focusing on the road itself, right? You get in the days when you're just driving, like you're there, you see the cars and everything, but you miss a pothole or something. So I missed the pothole, right? So anytime I'm driving on the road and I miss a pothole, listen, I'm going to pay a lot more attention to the road now. Do you get what I'm saying? So I can do one or two things. I can sit there and I can fixate on the fact that I just hit a pothole and take away from my attention, take away from me focusing on any future potholes, right? Or I can say, you know what? Charge it to the game, right? Whatever road this is caught me lacking. You understand? That's really what stumbling blocks are. That's what a hardship is, right? Handling a hardship only hinders you. You see what I'm saying? Coping with the hardship, you're accepting a challenge. You get what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. You're accepting the challenge. Because coping with something is a work in progress, right? And I believe my buddy just said it's a work in progress. You see what I'm saying? It's not something that you just wake up one day and you know what to do, how to deal with it or whatever. You get what I'm saying? A hardship is no. But yeah, a hardship, I'm gonna put it like this. I'm a compromise, right? That's one of my ways of coping. I compromise. You get what I'm saying? There's right here emotion-focused coping strategies, right? Releasing pent-up emotions. That's just venting. That's just venting, essentially. So I have created a community, right? And I say this all the time. I've created a community around myself. Like, it irks my soul when I hear guys, I mostly hear guys say it, but when I hear people say, we don't get respect in the community, or our voice isn't heard, or, all these half-cocked excuses, if you ask me, right? Because if you want to do something, you're going to do it. So they complain about, not having a community or people that they can reach out to when they're feeling down, but have time to play 2K. You know what I'm saying? Prioritize your time. That's all I'm saying, right? Like, it is possible to have people in your life that have genuine, unconditional love for you, right? In a variety of aspects or capacities, but it is possible. Like, I got a partner right now. Every time we get off the phone, or we split love. Love, my boy. You feel what I'm saying? Love, my boy. And it's, we're not meant to live in this life alone. You get what I'm saying? So for me, I'm not gonna say I have to have people around. Like, I have to have people that I can contact and reach out to, because at times there it felt like I didn't, right? Like, because I was dealing with other things internally, because they were always there, but because I was dealing with other things internally, I felt like I couldn't go to them regarding a matter or certain matters, right? So I had actually convinced myself that I was alone, so I learned to live alone, right? But I see now that releasing pent-up emotion it's healthy, it's required. I would strongly advise, right? This may be unsolicited advice, but I would strongly advise doing that. And you don't even have to have someone to talk to. You get what I'm saying? You could literally write it down, like get a piece of paper and a pen, or go to your notes or whatever, and just write down however you feeling, or just say it. You feel what I'm saying? Sit in your room by yourself in your car, just say it. Just let it out. You get what I'm saying? Like when I'm driving. So if someone cuts me off, right? Or does something, right? Reckless or inconsiderate while driving. To myself, I D-bag. You know what I mean? Then I keep it moving. For me, that is my coping mechanism. You get what I'm saying? Because if I don't say something about it, it's just going to be a thought in my head that's just going to keep playing over. It's going to keep playing over, right? Well, that was rude. You get what I'm saying? That might be more appropriate. But yeah, that was rude, right? And then I let it go. I let it out. It's really that simple. That's why I be trying to tell people mental health is real. Listen, it's really that simple. And it helps so much, more than you can think. So think about that. Or try to do that. The next time you're driving and somebody cuts you off, or, swerve in front of you, or does something reckless or inconsiderate, right? Say how you feel, right? Say how you feel right there in that moment. And then let it go. Because that's really all it is. When you don't let something out, it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And pressure busts pipes. You dig? So another way is distracting oneself. So, the current hardship that, I'm dealing with, or one of, I distract myself a number of ways, right? You could read, you could draw. I work on my show, or, my podcast, something like that, or coming up with new ideas, spoken word or something like that. I distract myself. So out of sight, out of mind is definitely a thing, right? But that's not always possible, right? It's not always a solution. So instead of fixating on that, I acknowledge it, but I do my best to think about something that's more productive for me, something that's healthier for me mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. You get what I'm saying? Another is managing hostile feelings. So when it comes to my family or my loved ones, people that I have love for, right? It gets a little harder. It can get a little harder for me to practice self-control, right? So if it's a situation where, my mom's present, my little sister present, and there's a guy, and I'm not really rocking with how he moving, how he carrying himself, speaking to them, I'm I'm naturally a little more aggressive, right? I'm not even gonna lie. And it's in moments just like that we have to learn to see the emotions we can handle. You understand? Here we go. Here we're going from the tie it in for you. So if you're in a situation and you have to deal, you have to deal with the person. You can't handle that person because that's actually, in my opinion, that's going to only lead to more friction in your life than already exists, right? But you can handle your emotions. You can handle your actions. So though you can't, so you on a job, right? So in the situation I'm in, I'm not going to go into great detail, but in this particular hardship, I can't control that they're present. I can't control that. I can't handle that. But I can cope with it by handling my emotions. I can cope with it by handling my mouth. I can cope with it by handling my actions. That is what my sister was trying to tell me. And if I was too bullheaded, or if I was still nephew Leon, I probably wouldn't have received that. So I thank you, Liz. But yes, we have to learn how to manage, handle, deal with those hostile feelings. I'm not talking about those extreme cases where, it's a life or death situation, you have to protect someone. But if it's just words, because I'm real big on principles, right? And I'm not even going to say these younger cats. It's just like, because it's age is just a number, like just mentally. Cats that are young mentally, regardless of their age, because there's some 17-year-olds that act like 50-year-olds, and there's some 60-year-olds that act like 16-year-olds. You see what I'm saying? So it's really a mental thing. But yeah, he's okay. So I was asked, is it really coping if you're just handling it a different way? Yes, because coping and handling, like, they have two different definitions. Like, it's two different things. If you handle a situation, it's more of a hands-on physical approach, right? If you cope with something, that's more of a detached way of dealing with it. So I'm not gonna handle that person, right? So handling that person would be me, in all honesty, probably ending up behind bars, right? Because I got into a fist fight, right? That'd be me handling it. Like, that was the old way of me. That was me trying to handle a situation, right? That's what I used to do. But now I cope with the situation, right? So though handling is required. So what I'm trying to say is people are handling the wrong thing. They're trying to handle the wrong thing. Right. Handling the hardship is how? How is that even possible? Not saying you're saying that, but how can you handle right. So you handle it like a gentleman is what he said. That's what I'm trying to say. So in that situation, you handled it like a gentleman. That's what one would say. But to keep it simple, what you did was handle yourself. You conducted yourself like a gentleman. Does that make sense? You conducted yourself like a gentleman. So you didn't handle the situation. I'm fully aware that I can't handle every situation, though there are some, right? Okay, so I'm referring to the situations and hardships that you can't just handle, which is what I'm referring to, right? So I don't handle the guy. I handle myself, right? Or not even guy, but the situation. I don't handle the situation, right? Because I've learned that some things are to be coped with and some things are to be handled and dealt with. Because I learned the difference and I actually attempt to apply that in my everyday life, I take a step back from everything. Because before I try to make a decision, or before I say anything, before I do anything, I try to get the best understanding of what's going on possible. right? So at times there isn't much clarity you can gain or from a situation. So I try to figure out what it really is. Like, for instance, there were times where certain family members, so you handed instead of handled. I don't think I understand that, brother. I think it might be a grammatical error. But there was a period of time, right, where with my family, we weren't able to communicate effectively. Yes, I chose to hand out positivity. Yes, precisely. Yes, my brother, you got it. I said keep up. Listen, this man right here get a gold star. But yeah, so I'm just about to give a scenario, right? Real life example. So I chose to hand out positivity, right? So there were times where with my family members, we couldn't communicate effectively. Like there was a I call it the grand disconnect between the older generation and the younger generations, right? There's a lack of patience, right, from some of the members of the older generation, and then there's a lack of respect from some of the members of the younger generation, right? So because we don't live with each other, we don't know each other well enough now, there was a disconnect, right? So I couldn't handle the situation. So you know what? I'm a technical guy. So I could, yes, very well, I could try to handle my uncles or my aunts, right? The ones that where the disconnect lied, right? Those relationships. I could have attempted to, but for me, it's a respect thing. So I'd never try to, real to the bone, I'm not going to try to handle no person. I'm not handling anybody. I don't have any children, so I'm not handling anybody, right? So I learned to cope with that. So though I'm not just going to stand there and, let anybody disrespect me, or I feel like, if I feel like I'm being disrespected, I'm not going to just allow it to continue happening. But at the same time, I realize I can't handle them. I can't make them say what I want them to say, how I want them to say it. I can't do that. So I learned to cope with it, right? I told myself that all this really is a lack of understanding on both sides, both parties. Myself and one particular uncle, Uncle Timmy, right? He's actually the father of artist Tebow, right? The beat that you're listening to that I let him, right? My cousin. That's actually his dad, right? So Uncle Timmy. So when I was staying in Mississippi with Granny, I was like 24, I believe, and Granny needed some help, right? Going through a hardship, right? Some hard times. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll go help Granny. So while I'm down there, Uncle Timmy and I got into a verbal disagreement, right? Because like I said, I don't do the physicality with elders, right? Or with anybody really. But there was a verbal disagreement, verbal altercation, right? And it wasn't until some months down the road where I called Uncle Timmy. And I'm going to tell you, God works in mysterious ways, right? It's just crazy how it works. So I was working on some content for my podcast. And I'm so sad. I lost all the content. I really did. I lost my old phone, so it's gone. But anyways, so I was working on something for my podcast. And Uncle Timmy has been married for, if I'm not mistaken, longer than I've been alive, right? So I'm thinking, okay, it's a good resource here in my family. So I needed his insight on something. But then I remembered the note we ended on before. You get what I'm saying? I called, right? The first thing I did was apologize for how I behaved, right? You get what I'm saying? And he apologized for how he behaved. And what we did was hand out positivity, right? Because we really could have reverted back to trying to handle each other, right? So instead of trying to tell each other how to talk to each other, tell each other how to communicate with each other, we cope with the fact that we don't know each other well enough. You get what I'm saying? Because that's all it was. You get what I'm saying? So instead of trying to, because the first time me and Uncle Timmy had that, or that first initial conversation we had, right? That was me calling myself trying to handle, verbally at least, trying to handle my uncle, right? That's what I was doing, trying to handle my uncle. The second go round, by then I had realized I don't handle my uncle. You get what I'm saying? I don't tell him how to talk to me, right? I handle myself. I make sure that I'm not saying anything out of the way that would lead to him saying something that would lead to me feeling like I have to handle him. I handle myself. You get what I'm saying? Everything is not meant to be handled. Everything cannot be. Some things cannot be handled. You get what I'm saying? We have to learn to cope with things. Coping, in my opinion, requires more patience. It requires more understanding. It requires more maturity to be able to cope with something. Because when handling something, when I handle something, I don't necessarily have to accept whatever it is, right? 9 times out of 10, that's why I'm handling it, because I don't want to accept it. You get what I'm saying? Yes, sir. You shouldn't have to handle anyone but yourself. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? Coping, though, in order for me to cope with something, I have to I'm accepting. When I cope with something, I'm accepting that I can't handle it. I can't change it. It is what it is. C'est la vie. And then I cope with it. Then I learn how to deal with whatever it is I don't like, I don't care for. You get what I'm saying? Handle yourself. Try handling yourself first before you try handling a situation. You see what I'm saying? Yes, I like that. Like losing a loved one. You can't handle that. What, you gonna bring them back? I can't bring Tone back. It's really impossible for me to handle it. Well, no, I could become this mad scientist and, come up with a way to bring them back, right? But no, I'm gonna cope with the fact that Tone went gone. You see what I'm saying? You can't do, yes sir, you can't do nothing about it. There's certain situations where you can't do nothing about it. You have no choice but to cope. But there are certain individuals that will still insist on trying to handle it. So, if that's you, hey, more power to you. You let me know how that worked for you. But Uncle Leon, he's gonna cope, you understand? Yeah. When you learn to cope with things, listen, I said it before in another show, right? Before we get up out of here. Liberate yourself. Liberate yourself. Free yourself of the responsibility that you've given yourself to handle or try to change a situation. Free yourself of that responsibility that was never yours to begin with. You understand? Learn to cope with it. Like I said, use your best judgment, to cope and handle, but learn to cope with situations that you can't change. So realize you can't handle hardships. In my opinion, Uncle Leon does not think you can handle hardships. Cope with it. Liberate yourself and cope with them challenges. Well, that's it. So I love you. I don't know you, but I love you. You understand? Passing out positivity. So yeah, we gonna let my boy Tebow breathe, you know what I'm saying, take you on knock, give you something to bob your head to, you understand? So yes, enjoy your week. And what I want you to do this week is, whatever hardship you're dealing with, whatever hardships you're dealing with, try to figure out a healthy way or ways to cope with that hardship. Stop trying to handle the hardship. Stop trying to change the hardship, because it's something that you need to get out of that. You understand what I'm saying? Learn and figure out a way to cope with it. We out of here. Thank y'all for coming out.